Jonah. I'm from Canada and I'm 21 years old. I recently graduated from Mount Allison University and I've come to Korea for the past 2 months to do a homestay. Yeah, that's about all there is to me right now. I found out about the Teach in a Homestay program after COVID happened and everything was down. And I knew that I wanted to work abroad, and I knew that I wasn't ready for it or that I wasn't comfortable with it entirely yet. So what the Homestay program provided me was something where I wouldn't have all the responsibilities on me, but I could still go abroad and experience culture abroad without worrying about where I would be sleeping every night and where I would be eating every night. So a lot of those finances would be taken care of for me. And yeah, that was pretty much the most attractive part of it, because it meant that I could travel abroad while also not going too far out of my comfort zone, because I knew that was something I was worried about. The reason I chose Korea is actually a bit of a funny story. I knew I wanted to travel somewhere in Asia, but I didn't know where. And a friend of mine is Korean, and he was always talking about how much he loves Korea, how much he wanted to go to Korea, and he'd never been. And we lived together in university, and we both agreed, okay, you know what, this summer we're both going to go to Korea, it's going to happen. But he ended up not finishing all of his courses, and he had to do some summer school to finish up his degree, so it was just me in the end. And I knew absolutely nothing about Korea, but I was like, you know what, I'm still going to do this. I want to do something fun over the summer, and I wanted to see what Asia was like. I'd never been farther than Israel in my life, and I love traveling. So it was, at that point, it was just kind of a no-brainer, because there's nothing more interesting than looking to something that you know absolutely nothing about and then diving right into it. And those are so rare nowadays, and Korea really allowed me to do that. And that was probably the number one reason. And yeah, it did not disappoint from that angle. So I had never taught before this program, and I knew it was going to be something that would be difficult for me. I was doing the TEFL course outside of this, so this provided me some of the hours necessary to get that degree. And through a lot of trial and error, I kind of arrived at the best method that works for me. What I found, so I worked with two people. Worked with a mother of 39, and I worked with a son of about 7 years old. And the methods that you use for those two are just completely different, I found. And it took a lot of trial and error to realize what works. But the method, actually, that works best is like I say, it is that trial and error. It's just going after it, because it's 3 hours. And you really just, you gotta keep on work, see what works, see what doesn't. I found with the kid that songs worked incredibly well, and games worked incredibly well, and you just have to be a lot less strict with yourself and a lot less strict with the kid, because what you're going to be learning is a lot more fluid, and it's a mix of taking care of the child as well as teaching them. Now when you move to the mother, she is actually interested in learning, so that of course it's an entirely different dynamic, because now you're working on English primarily, and you're working on how to teach English primarily. So I was a lot more worried about how to structure her lessons, whereas with the child, I had to learn to not care that much about the structure and worry more about making him happy with learning any English. And it would be hard to say that there's any one strict method that I stuck to with the child. It was, like I said, it was very fluid, very dynamic, I guess is a very kind way of putting it. But it's really a lot of constantly trying to make everything a matter of reinforcement. So you're trying to reinforce English in this kid in any way that you can, and just as long as you're desperate about trying to do that, then any method really works. And being excited about it is probably the one constant. A method that works with the mother, or the mother I found was splitting up, because it's 3 hours, and that's something that you have to get used to very quickly, and it's very difficult. I'm not going to say it other way, but it is rewarding. And with the mother, I found that splitting it into three 1-hour chunks of different material was the biggest takeaway, and the biggest way to stop any material from getting boring. Because even though you're working with an adult, that doesn't mean that it has to be boring what you're working on, the way you're teaching it. It doesn't matter if you're a kid or if you're an adult. We all want to be engaged while learning. So just splitting up the lessons into 1-hour chunks of different material. So like we'd read a book in the first. We'd work on like some role play of like going to the store or a job interview or something like that, and then strictly grammar for the last part. And of course, you also mix up reading, writing, listening, and all of that in different ways, so that you're getting a little bit of everything. Yeah. I talked a little bit. I've already mentioned what I think is an important method, but I didn't talk about going into your strengths. A lot of teaching is knowing what your strengths are, knowing what your weaknesses are, and not necessarily focusing only on your strengths and not working on your weaknesses. But it's important to know what they are, just so that you're cognizant of that and you can work through that. So for me personally, my strengths are more on understanding material. Like, I'm pretty good at knowing the different grammar rules. When someone asks me, why does a determinant, why does a noun come after the word determinant, or some other, like, why does a present tense verb, why do we use a present tense verb here? I'm pretty good at answering those questions. Sometimes I'll have to search it up, but I like linguistics, so that part's easy. But keeping up energy is a problem of mine, something that I'm not great at. So just finding strategies of getting around that is something that I found important. One method that I thought was important was getting into a routine every day, so that I knew I would have energy by the end of the day, because our sessions would go from 7 to 10 p.m. or 6 to 9 p.m. So just structuring my day so that I wouldn't be exhausted, and then having a shower before lessons. Again, this is super simple stuff, but it allowed me to have the energy I needed, and then also structuring breaks at strategic times allowed me to play to my strengths, and then also didn't hurt me too much with my weaknesses. The most memorable thing that I did with my host family was going to Jeju Island. So Jeju Island is a small island south of Korea, which I did not know about. I'd never heard of it before coming here. And one day, Kim, or Kate, my host, said, Jonah, do you want to go to Jeju? And I didn't know what that meant. But of course I didn't know what it meant, so of course I had to find out. And so I go, of course, let's go. And I didn't know it was an island. I didn't know we had to take a plane. So one day, she's like, okay, let's get in the car. And I go in the car, no idea where I'm going. And an hour and a half later, we're at the Gimpo International Airport. And I'm like, we're going on a plane? What is happening? So we fly on this plane, and we end up an hour later at just a beautiful tropical island, with a culture all to its own. It's very rustic, some beautiful fishing villages, and a great amount of agriculture and a lot of different plants that I didn't know about. A lot of beautiful pines and evergreens and deciduous trees are really intermixed. Most people don't care about this. I found that really interesting. And just, it's there's just a beautiful little island, just rustic fishing villages, and a lot of old Korea that I think you don't get anywhere else. A lot of it is untouched from the last 50 or 60 years, and there's just a lot of old culture there that you can't find anywhere else, and it's really different from all the other places in Korea, and I just had no idea that it existed, and I was so delighted by it. Yeah. One fun story that I had was my host, Kate. She would go to church every Sunday, and I was so lucky. She actually would bring me along with her to meet with her church friends every Friday, and then on Sunday we'd go to church. And again, I'd be a kind of a part of that church community, and so every Sunday we drive to this apartment style building. It was very different from any church I'd ever been to, because I'm used to a church, of course, big stone building, very hallowed halls. I went to high school in a Anglican style church building, and of course that's what I'm expecting. But in Korea it's not necessarily like that. This was a Protestant church, and it was there were no crosses, no Jesuses, and it was like a conference hall, and it was just very different from anything I'd done. But they let me sit in the pews, and actually they were very kind. The minister, or the minister, I don't know the exact name, told one of the other people to come and be a translator for me. He was a student who actually goes to Oxford. Anyways, he sat by me and just told me what was happening, what the pastor was saying, and it's just kind of surreal, because you sit down and you're thinking, I'm in a Korean church listening to a language I don't understand, but I'm being told very kindly, and that alone it's very hard to get. It feels like you just start smiling, because you go, what is this? What is happening? So there's so many times in this similar situation. So at the church, and you find people speaking English in the weirdest situations. So after the church, after the pastor had finished speaking, we all had lunch together, and I ended up meeting this really nice family that had traveled throughout India and Spain, and all spoke English, and we just talked about what it was like to grow up in Korea, because again, that's something I know nothing about. So you just end up ending up in those situations with people that you'd never think you'd ever meet. that was an interesting, it's a memorable thing that happened. I mean, how satisfied am I? I mean, I came here to experience Korea, and I did. So I don't see how I wouldn't be satisfied. I'm very I'm very satisfied. I got to experience Korean food. Like I said earlier, I got to meet Korean people from a lot of different walks of life, and I got to experience what I felt like was Korea. I think it's really easy, especially in Seoul, to go to a bunch of places that are very globalized, very international, and it doesn't really feel like when you go there that you're in Korea. It feels like you're in a very commercial area, which you can find in most other places, and I'm always wary of that when I'm traveling. But I was satisfied because I got to go to other places, go to places that aren't like that, go to places that an actual Korean would go to. And so that was really what I wanted out of this experience, and I feel like I got that. So totally, very, very satisfied. So overall, I just say, a very positive impression. I'm so thankful to Homestay Korea, who of course organized the whole thing. I would never have found Kate otherwise, obviously, and I feel like we're gonna stay in touch even after I'm gone. So I don't really know what else to say, but everything I think worked out well, and I don't feel like there was much that was missing at the end of the day. So I can just say thank you, Homestay Korea, and I hope that more people get to have an experience like the one that I had. So